Welcome to the February 12th OpenZFS production user call. So far, we have Stu, Steve, Jan, Rob, Andrew, Dan, and myself, Michael. And we were just chatting that Andrew did get his open system working under Beehive, I believe on Illumos, and DHCP relay was to blame. Andrew, any just fun news there, or are you just rocking and rolling with it?
Nope, it's working just fine now.
Perfect. And the BSD can call for participation closes today. I've put in 2 talks. You can too. And I'm even happy to review a talk for you, even though time is ticking. I've helped quite a few people do that. And I think conferences are awesome, but I'm also really, really weird. This may be of interest. I co-authored a SNIA data protection white paper on best practices. This was last updated in like 2017, as I recall, back when it was the DPCO and not the DPPC, the Data Protection and Privacy Committee. And it is 40 something pages and quite interesting. So check that out. There's the link actually for you. I will drop the link in the chat. PSDCan is probably a lot easier to find than this. PSDCan.org. And my apologies to those who listen to this because I'm not sure I'll have this out in time for that. So one brief little fun thing. Celebrating Blender, the absolute wonderful beast of a 3D rendering app and possibly video editor at times, and possibly CAD program. I've seen various forks and variations. It was used for a rather popular movie that did well at the Golden Globes and will hopefully get an Oscar. Flow or Straume in Latvian. Uh, Socially, this was last night. We greeted the director, and that's me to his right. My family is there. One's in college and couldn't attend, and we're all freezing our butts off in Portland. But that also does raise a valid on-topic question of, does anyone present know what Blender data looks like on disk? Does it follow, say, just big old 1 meg blocks or ideal,
Blender,
etc.? Go ahead, yeah, Andrew.
that was me. Uh,
Yeah.
Blender data, it wouldn't doesn't really show up as video per se because it's not. It's its data is going to be 3D model formats with paths and and keyframes for positioning type of thing for the most part.
Even when rendered, I assume it blasts out massive things, but I'm just
When rendered, it's going to render to something like um, um, MPEG
okay.
type
Have
of
you
video. It's
used
going to
it
output to another program. Yes,
as a
I've
resident
used Blender.
expert? Oh,
I wouldn't call myself an expert, but
no, no
yes, I've
worries.
used it.
You're our resident
Um,
expert so far. And I think you're
uh,
fine.
sometimes, sometimes there's the option of if you're rendering to just a sequence of individual image files that can be then
Mhm.
composited together into a video in after the fact, using something like FFmpeg.
Sure, sure,
In
sure.
fact, I think it uses FFmpeg internally for doing video creation, if
Who
memory
doesn't?
serves.
Mhm.
Um,
Cool. I
but
sure hope they're
aside
protecting that movie on ZFS. There, I said it.
but aside from being used for doing video work like that, it's also sometimes can be used along with a number of similar applications for doing modeling and whatnot type work
Mhm.
for game development type of
Ah,
things.
cool.
So it's kind of a competitor to something like, at least to some degree, to something like Maya or 3D Studio Max.
Yes,
So,
and I've seen some posts like the Maya folks saying that Blender is not ready for prime time for a full feature-length movie, but here we are.
well, they're always going to say that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like they don't have a vested interest.
Love it. Okay. Anyway, any other Blender Blendinos present, or shall we move on?
Linux
Cool.
is a toy. BSD is never going to be real Unix and so
It's,
on. Sure, just buy closed source products.
despite being Unix before there was a Linux. Anyway,
Yeah, BSD's always
Oh,
been Unix.
exactly.
uh, yeah,
So
what's the joke?
we are blessed with Rob
Well, Linux
Moore.
I buy, but BSD's always been Unix.
Rob is joining us to discuss LibZFS core and various options and strategies for linking against it in your utility of choice. Rob, you're muted, and Jan, do you just want to actually, do you have any news on your discovery here? Because at last check, you maybe had it building but not running or something. Any news from you, Jan, who brought us to here, this point?
The workaround I documented last week works for me.
It works. Okay. And your motivation was a faster utility when provisioning jails on ZFS. And so you followed the same text as I've got on screen. Hopefully it's on screen. And that worked? Sounds like a yes. Rob, this is what Jan has done to date, and this brought up points like, oh, Samba does volume shadow copies, volume service, something or other.
So the two headers between the include and those you have to copy into your project, but thanks to the CDDL being non-virulent, unlike the GPL across files, you can just do that because you can use them unmodified, and it's not going to contaminate your code base as all CDDL, unlike GPL. So you have to copy those two headers from OpenZFS into your project because FreeBSD does not install them, and I think neither does Linux, DKMS, and so on.
Rob, it sounds like you've freed up. You have the floor. Set us straight.
Oh, right. So, I mean, I don't entirely know, but what it looks like to me is I'm guessing it would be helpful if you didn't have to do all the rest of that crap. So I need to move some headers around and make sure that when you include LibZFS core, you get everything you need. Is that what we're saying?
That's what it sounds like to me.
Yes, you need
Don't do that.
Types and the two headers, which are basically only enums, a few type defs and structs and so on, but nothing major. And those are missing to be able to actually build against libzfs core. Only the libzfs core. I'm not talking about the full libzfs.
Yep. All right.
In parallel, there was a question of, versioned or stable or committed interfaces. That's above my pay grade. I'll let you two argue about that, but I know it came up.
I mean, if we're talking about 7 lines here, I've got questions as to whether or not there's enough there for it to properly considered to be protectable work. I'm not a lawyer, but
there's no issue with that. There's no issue with that whatsoever. There is no argument possible where you can say there is any kind of cross-contaminated thing at all because it's not a derived word.
One at a time. We got lots of latency. We're going from Australia to Berlin to Illinois. So just give each other space. Go ahead.
I don't exactly know because I heard mention of Samba in there and I heard mention of I don't exactly know what we're talking about, but we can move things around. You can bring files from ZFS into your project. There isn't any cross-contamination issues because it's not ZFS is not a derived work of your project. So it like the GPL is garbage. It is not legally sound, in my opinion, and I'm not a lawyer, but blah. But I don't know exactly what we're talking about here. But if you need headers in order to interface with something, you're fine. Headers are fine. If you have a more specific scenario that I can look at, I can speak to that. But I don't know what we're talking about. But going back from that, if we just want to make it so you can include one file and get everything you need, yes, that should be reasonable. And there is a bit of a mix there. FSCFS is sort of the public interface, but it goes back to Solaris, where FS/SU was the public interface for APIs to that or more to the on-disk data structures for that file system. So it's a little bit strange. But yes, one thing to use would be fine. So let's do that.
So what about an actual versioning so people don't have the proverbial rug pulled out from under them if it changes mid FreeBSD release or something? What would that look like? What's it tied to? Upstream or the FreeBSD release or what? Again, my pay grade.
It's tied to upstream. OpenZFS upstream is the source of truth.
Of course.
If FreeBSD were to bring something in from OpenZFS, and it broke, that would be a FreeBSD bug.
Okay.
I recognize that in some ways that's like the same 5 people just with a slightly different hat on. But as much as we have API stability guarantees, it's within a I guess to minor series, like so 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. I do want to get more of these things actually written down and properly committed to, but that I know is committed to by people who review code, because anytime you break it, there's a CI check that screens. It's looking for API signature changes, and yells about it, and then you either have to back out your change or justify your change or update the stuff that feeds into CI. So, like I recognize I'm not being especially committal. I think these things come out of like it's sort of circular. If no one's using it, then there's not much need to make a strong guarantee, but people don't want to use it until there is a strong guarantee. So it tends to be, if you turn up and say, look, I have a program, it does this, I think it's really useful, I want to tell more people about it, I'm really worried about this thing breaking out from under me, and you're kind of serious and willing to push on that, then that's where you'll get people on the other end saying, yeah, that's totally a fair thing to want. Let's pin that, or let's document the policy that's in people's heads or whatever. Does that make sense? I'd like to be more committal. I'd like to just point you straight at the doc, but there isn't one. So let's work towards making one.
I think it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And to be clear, I guess kind of what you were saying on the question of some of these header type stuff is kind of what I was getting at a little more softly.
Just so to paint the picture, so Samba does have a nifty ability to mimic the Windows volume shadow copy feature, which means lets users go back in time, and TrueNAS have been great about providing that to users. So a Windows user just clicks on previous versions and magic happens behind the scenes. Now, they've had the benefit of very carefully synchronized versions of ZFS, of Samba, of the OS, etc. So they've had that made that easy for themselves by making it hard for themselves. So Jan was thinking, well, one, it might be a lot easier if there are those guaranteed APIs and libraries, but also maybe they're doing it completely wrong, and channel programs could perform that magic behind the scenes and completely sweep this problem under the rug. I will let you two speculate further from there, because I just want to make sure all these points get out there.
So what are you saying? Samba already has support for this with ZFS, or IX have a patch to Samba that already has support for this, or a plugin?
Only the Samba patch by IX Systems for TrueNAS included that, because you can't build against it unless you make it part of your operating system build procedures or do some unholy header mangling.
hang on, Samba's just a a bit of application software. How does it find its libzfs? Does is it a configure tests or what is it?
I don't know exactly what they did to their Samba port, but it has to involve either having the FreeBSD kernel sources available during port building so that you can build and then kind of mess up all your headers by including the OpenZFS compatibility stuff. Or you would have to do something similar to that surgery I did. I have the other part is there are other users of LibZFS core and FreeBSD, for example, ECTL, but those are part of the base system, so you always have the code available at the time.
Rob, I've dropped in chat a link from the last call that's touching this, and if one really wants to spelunk, there's also the IX repo on the topic, but this one's a little more focused.
Okay, just looking now. On the chat. I'm doing my usual little trick with two computers because
this is the way.
The mobile life is hard.
Yeah. So, and here, I guess the TrueNAS repo on Samba 4.1.1, which is naturally a wee back. Maybe they have a newer version, 4.1.1.
All right. So all of this is just there's a patch or a module or something for Samba, but it can't build because there are ZFS headers that are only in the kernel source, not in the user source or in the standard header set or whatever. Sorry, I don't know what FreeBSD's terminology.
Sure, no worries at all. But yes,
and if OpenZFS were to shuffle things around and fix things up so that and declare these headers are good for you to install as user space headers, for want of a better term, then this would have everything it needs, and like FreeBSD could do that. This would have everything it needs out of the box, and life would be good. Is that a reasonable summary?
Yep, that's about it.
There's some complication because you cannot take all of the headers. You can only take some of them, because if you take all of them, it's going to mess up your C compiler environment to look like a Solaris system. For example, the definition of struct UUID changes. The field names, it's still the same in memory, but the field names are different, so you can no longer access the fields in the struct and so on.
Yep, no, that's cool. Because I mean, hand waving it away, but we just move things around to get to like the minimum viable product, or if we can't do that, we gate things behind flags and stuff. This is good. This speaks to exactly what I said before, that I need to move libzfs headers around, but also, I said, kind of need a use case to enforce some kind of stability. I can work with this patch, figure out what it needs. I can just iterate on it and get it building with the right set, and basically say there is a real application out there that is, good and useful. If we reshaped the headers, the API this way, and then we committed to that, that's our starting point as an ongoing concern. As like a committed interface, and we can go from there. When I said it was a bit circular, who goes first? It's like, well, this goes first. We already have the application. So, yeah. And I love
Any other questions for Rob?
I can share example code. Yes. Just hit me up via Signal or IRC.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jan. So Jan will share its example code.
Yeah. It sounds like we found your chicken.
Exactly.
Perfect. I'll have a look at
that. Rob, thank you, first and foremost. And if you have a tip jar, let the world know. And also, do you have any questions, topics, or other ideas, or poll the user monkeys?
bit
koala.
rude, but I'll
Sorry.
take your point. Yeah, what's a very high quality? Yeah, it doesn't matter. Do I? No, I don't. I mean, I'm happy to answer questions. I don't think I have a particular thing happening at the moment. I've had my head
Ooh.
down in one project for about the last 3 months, and I'd
Oh,
be
no kidding.
happy
That's
to
cool. That's
think about
something.
anything else. It's what I've been working on for the last couple of years. I've presented about it and stuff. It's just
Cool.
about how ZFS responds to flush
Cool.
errors from a block device. And I'm like, I've been in the final throes of testing for about a week, and I really, really, really want to get a draft PR up today or tomorrow.
Oh,
But
sweet.
try so hard. Anyway,
I would love to
it's
run
like
one quickly by you once
it's
you've
very boring. Yes, please do.
described that.
Go.
Okay. I went from a primary true NAS to a raw FreeBSD system, and then went full circle to using the original as a backup, as one does, a replica. And I found that for some reason, bizarre reason, when I did a rollback, the written property never went to zero, which I thought that's how it behaves. And a force send of the newer data from the newer second NAS that replaced the first one worked, and that was just fine. But I did have a mystery on my hands of why on earth it could just never roll back to zero, because I didn't know if it's metadata or properties that I changed. I put them back to the original properties exactly as they were, and it just stuck there. So there you have it.
I have absolutely no idea off the top of my head.
We have a lot in common on that. Great. I have no idea either.
I am doing some searching around for exactly where that property comes from and whatever happens. I mean, all the obvious questions. You didn't have a sneaky checkpoint bookmark,
Nothing
even
exotic.
even a weird file open somewhere just hanging around. I'm guessing not if it's a backup server.
Yeah, it
Like
was
just something that might prevent a
the
data being
data set
reclaimed.
wasn't mounted, and I went very carefully through unmount, can mount, no auto, and just like, die. Come on. It's like I didn't try the pool with a -n import, so it's simply not mounted in any way, shape, or form, and purely can only do things like the replications. But somehow I just sat there hitting this wall. Based on my understanding, which is easily flawed, is not supposed to happen. You should be able to roll back if you have a nice, clean place to roll back to. Anywho,
Indeed. Well, I have the
there it
code
is.
up on my screen. If I find it before the end of the call, I'll let you know.
Sweet.
But if not, I'll keep
get back to work. You're moving mountains, and if you can get a review of G within time on your amazing new stuff, yay. Okay, anything else for Rob while we have him? Naturally, he might have to drop, etc. Steve, your question might actually bounce off Rob nicely. Please rephrase it. I was mid something else while you shared it in the pregame.
So I've always sort of, even before I started using Fedora, I was basically compiling ZFS to do the install. So I would compile from source and just install it that way. And so I never really tried real hard on Fedora to do something a little bit easier. I see Rob may have posted here in the document. Just go to that ZFS on Linux link and download from there. So I wasn't aware of that. But also, I just realized I didn't even bother to read the manual. There's instructions on the OpenZFS GitHub area for installing on Fedora, which maybe that's what I should be doing. Probably.
Yeah, I'd say possible. I haven't looked at that docs and I don't run Fedora. All I know is that, yeah, under that very ancient URL are repos generated for Red Hat EL and Fedora. It's part of all there's extra magic build infrastructure at Lawrence Livermore because they run a lot of Fedora for all their very, very big
That's good to know.
with ZFS on them. So yes, they have auto builders that are building packages for new new Red Hat and new Fedora as they come along. I know the Fedora ones are sometimes a little behind, so there's often an issue here in the tracker saying, yeah, 41 just came out and it doesn't build yet. It's like, yeah, give us 5 minutes. But and then that updates there. So I don't know enough about it. I don't know if that is a real repo or whatever. So yeah, have a look at the docs. There's install instructions for different platforms. Have a look at that. If that seems right, then great. Maybe if things could be improved, definitely throw up issues like if documentation and stuff can be improved. I think a lot of stuff is out of date just because people may not point at it and say, "Oh, this didn't make any sense." So there you go.
Okay, yeah, I have some homework to do. Jan also mentioned DKMS, which I've seen that floated around quite a bit. I need to learn a little bit more about that.
So yeah, DKMS is just it's a tool for third party, so not in-tree Linux kernel modules, and it usually comes with your distribution or maybe an add-on package. And the idea is that when you build a third-party kernel, it registers a third-party module. It leaves the build system for it on the machine, and it gets registered with DKMS. And then when the operating system, so like Fedora, update their kernel package, they call into DKMS and say, now rebuild all of the out-of-tree packages for this kernel. And so you will have a new set of modules that match each kernel that you might have installed, and it will upgrade when you install a properly packaged upgrade that knows how to register with DKMS. That will all get rebuilt in the right way as well. So it's how a lot of distributions ship out-of-tree modules. Or just modules that they don't want to include in their base packages because they don't want you to have literally every driver for every computer ever made sitting on your disk all the time.
Right.
So that's the basic idea. Linux is weird, but they would do it nice.
That's a great summary. Yeah, so I'm just gonna do a little digging around and testing, and I'll report back next week how successful I was.
Awesome.
Anything else, people? That was lovely progress in a brief amount of time, so I'll take it. I'll take it. Steve will report back.
So I have another half an hour until I can catch the connection.
Really? Okay. Do you have a topic for that half an hour, or are you just having a kebab or something?
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I can watch the occasional snowflake falling.
Is that me? No. Okay,
No,
everyone.
real snowflakes.
A real snowflakes.
I'm walking
Nice.
along.
Fun.
We're having some fall around here right now too. So
Wait. Blue skies here, but they're promising a few inches of snow tomorrow, which I'll believe it when I see it. I don't want to tempt it. Now's your last chance to throw in some topics. Else, I will let someone do the honors.
Like and subscribe.
There we have it. I believe the 19th. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Stay warm.
Do you have a minute or two?
I do, but let's sign this amazing little meeting off.
record.
I wish you a great, okay. I'll be around a few. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Have a great week.
Thanks. See you.
Great to talk to you all. Catch you later.
See you, Rob. Bye.